The Kansas City Royals need to find the value in winning series. Can they start to turn this season around? Why are series wins so important? And is this young group going to start being a fun team to watch moving forward? Find out on today's Locked On Royals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.
You are Locked On Royals, your daily Kansas City Royals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Royals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Royals. Email the show, lockedonroyals@gmail.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Royals your first listen. Every single morning, every single day, we're here for you talking Royals baseball. Your second listen, go check out the Locked On MLB podcast for the national perspective on all of baseball. Also, we got Chiefs OTAs opening up, so you actually get to see new footage of the Kansas City Chiefs for whatever it is worth. You can go check that out, Locked On Chiefs, where you get your podcast from, including on YouTube there as well. So we got you covered here on the Locked On Podcast Network with tons and tons of content. Every team you could ever imagine and want is on the network. Today's show is brought to you by RockAuto.com. RockAuto.com is a family-owned business serving you auto parts online for 20 years. That's right. 20 years ago, you could have been going to RockAuto.com and finding all of the parts that your car will ever need. On today's show, let's talk about the Kansas City Royals and the failure to win series, but also why winning series is so important, why that's such a buzzword, so to say. The first thing is it's incredibly hard to sweep a series, no matter if it's a 2-game series, a 3-game series, or a 4-game series. It is really hard. No matter if you are a title team, a playoff team, a rebuilding team, or a tanking team. Young or old, no matter what state you are in your team roster construction, it's very hard to win series in the sense of sweeping them. It's very hard to go on these long winning streaks. It's why they get so talked about. It's why they get so praised. So your goal, as weird as it sounds, every week as you head into the new week, new series on deck, your goal isn't actually to sweep. Sure, as competitors, you want to win every single day. But the goal is just to stay above water, keep paddling. Because it's a long season. Baseball spans 162 games in the regular season. We're in the Eastern Conference Finals in the NBA, and the Celtics are just now playing their 100th game. And folks, Eastern Conference Finals leads to the NBA Finals. So you can do the math there. They won't even reach 162 games total. Baseball plays 162 before they even start their postseason. So you see how, given the nature of a long season, you just need to stay your head above water because some teams will inevitably bottom out. The Reds this year, the Royals this year, teams will bottom out. Some teams will just burst onto the scene and be teams that do what is very hard, and that is to put together long winning streaks and win a series via the sweep multiple times. But if you can just keep your head above water, then you can find your path to the playoffs, especially with the additional playoff team slot. The Yankees, for example, have had multiple long winning streaks, currently on a 4-game streak, and they sit 33-13. 33-13 right now. So they're a team that has exploded onto the scene and bursted above the pack. The Royals and Reds are teams that have fallen off the pack. Everyone else is just hoping to win their series that week, or win their couple of series that week and continue marching along. And even a series split is incredible. What you don't ever want to do is lose a series. Losing a series is worse than losing a game. It's really the worst thing that you can do. And the Royals have gone on multiple 4-game losing streaks. They've gone on multiple 6-game losing streaks. And currently, right now, they're the worst team in the American League, and they're 3-7 in their last 10 games. 3-7. So, what is so important about winning series? Again, given that it's too hard to sweep series, you're going to want to come back to, if you don't want to lose them, you want to win them. And the difference in a day-to-day basis, right, doesn't seem that big. Oh, you won 2 of 3 instead of dropping that last game. That was a run different. That was a 1-run difference. That doesn't seem that big on paper. But if you win 2 of 3 this weekend, and then you win 3 of 4 Monday through Thursday, and then you take 2 of 3 the next weekend, and then you go 2-2 Monday through Thursday. Well, now all of a sudden you've compiled a ton of wins on your resume. Well, inevitably, some teams are getting swept or losing their series. Because for you to win your series, at least one other team has to lose their series. And that's why, especially in division, it's important. So it is important to win series. More important than sweeping. Why haven't the Royals been able to win a series this year? What do they have to do to fix this issue? And where does this young team go from here? We're going to talk all about that coming up. But first, I want to say right now, we're good friends over at rockauto.com. Rockauto.com is a family-owned business serving you auto parts online for 20 years. That's right, 20 years ago, you could have been going to rockauto.com and finding all of the parts that your car would ever need. Ever need. My favorite part about rockauto.com is that I know nothing about cars. Absolutely nothing. But I don't have to know anything about cars. I don't. All I have to know, folks, is my make, my model, and my year. That's it. That's all I have to know. And they're going to show me car parts that are compatible with my vehicle. So I'm not wasting any time, effort, or money on parts I cannot use or parts I do not need. It's simple. It really is. And since they don't know that I know nothing about cars, they're also not going to upcharge me. If I go into a traditional auto parts store right now, they're going to look at me and they're just going to tell by my bushy eyes, or what's it called? Bushy eyes? No, it's bushy-tailed bright eyes. Bright eyes and bushy tail, that I am in over my head. And they're going to tell me that windshield wipers cost $100. And I'm going to say, okay, here's my card. Because I won't know any better. But at rockauto.com, here's the beautiful thing. It's virtual. It's a screen. It's the internet. So for all they know, I am a do-it-yourself mechanic. For all they know, I work at a car dealership. So they can't upcharge me. They can just give me the same reliably low prices on their amazing selection that they give everybody else. So go to rockauto.com, type locked on in the how did you hear about us box, and they'll know what to do from there. rockauto.com. Amazing selections, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. And we're back on the Locked On Royals podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Royals. Email the show, lockedonroyals@gmail.com. Thank you for making Locked On Royals your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Royals baseball. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Now podcast. The Locked On Now podcast is a recap show recapping every game in baseball from the night before, breaking it all down. Because we know it's impossible to watch every single baseball game the night before. So let us do it for you and give you that local expert opinion on each and every game. Also, of course, check out Locked On Chiefs, check out Locked On MLB, check out Locked On MLB Prospects. And we have Locked On Big 12 for you Kansas fans, Locked On SEC for you Missouri fans, Locked On Missouri as well for you Missouri fans. Check it all out. Locked On Big 10, everything college sports related as well, not just professional. And if you're into the NBA, we've got a Locked On NBA podcast for the national scope, and every NBA team in the world is covered on our network, as well as NFL team and MLB team. So go check out Nash Walker and Locked On Twins to get ready for this series against Minnesota. Let's dive into the series, right? So we just discussed how important winning series are. The Royals split their first series of the year against Cleveland. We won't count that one game against St. Louis. They did lose it, but we won't count that. They lost the series to Detroit. They did win the series against Minnesota. They got swept by Seattle. So we're up to one series win, and we're through a month of the year. They won a series against Chicago. That's 2 series wins before getting swept by New York. So 2 series wins in April total. Then they don't win another series until May 13th through the 15th. That's 3 series wins. Folks, that brings us up to current day. That brings us up to current day. 3 series wins on the year. That is how you become the worst team in baseball. That is how you become the worst team in the American League. And so these young players are going to learn how important it is to win series. Because you take that Detroit series number 2 of the year, but of course they had that St. Louis game in between. They lost game 2, 1-2. You flip-flop that score, that's a series win, that's 4. You take that St. Louis series. They played the first game in St. Louis before transitioning back to Kauffman Stadium. They lost that game in St. Louis 1-0. That's 5 series wins if you can get that ball to bounce your way. You take the series against Texas. You lost the 2 games of that series that you lost by a combined 4 runs. You even overcome one of those 2-run deficits. That's a, 5 series wins so far, and we're in the middle of, the first month or / month number 2, however you want to look at this weird start to the season in between April and May. And your season is completely topsy-turvy, upside down. You are vying for a playoff spot by just having those handful of games go your way. Games in which you were no more than 2 runs down. That's tough. That's tough, but those are the breaks, and that's professional baseball, and that's what it's like playing professional baseball. So I just showed you right there the proofs in the pudding of winning series and how it just can overhaul your entire season. You'd rather win series consistently from the opening day to the end of the year than go on a flashy run the Royals did last year, right? Whenever the Royals started out with the best record in baseball, and oh my goodness, they've lost 5 games in a month, and then they came crashing down and went on a couple 11-game losing streaks in that season. You'd rather spread that out and just kept winning series in that sense. Slow and steady wins the race oftentimes in baseball. So it's just an interesting look at winning series and why it's so important. And here's the frustration. So if you're sitting there right now saying, well, if you're saying winning this series is the biggest deal, and you're saying that there's a handful of games in which we're separated by 2 runs or less that the Royals could have won to win series and thus turn their season around. What's so frustrating about this season? Why so sad besides the fact that they're in last place in the AL? Well, the reason is it's not as though they're losing these handful of games by winnable margins. It's not as though they're losing them because they have a bunch of 20-year-olds in the lineup. They're losing them with a roster, with a lineup, with a bullpen and a rotation that they expected to compete this year, that they expected would take a step, that they expected to be in the postseason. They're losing them with Hunter Dozier. They're losing them with Carlos Santana. They're losing them with Michael A. Taylor. They're losing them with all these guys, Zach Greinke, who are not in the future plans for this organization. So they're sacrificing player development to try to go in for a win, and they're not getting the win. Now, if they were losing these series, and of course they had the track record of, it's as easy as going back and changing the results of a game, a series to look back on, but they were losing those series, still had this exact same record, and the lineup was full of Bobby Witt Jr., MJ Melendez, Vinny, Nick Prado, guys like that who are 25, 21, whatever, young guys. It'd be different because you expect young teams to lose games. If your rotation was totally young guys who are going to be a part of your future plans, Carlos Hernandez, great guy. He's not a part of the future. Brad Keller, heck of a Rule 5 draft pick, has had a heck of a season this year. Is he really in your plans for 2026 whenever this team actually gets good again? The frustrating part is you have a lot of guys who you've tried it out as saviors of this organization, so to say, and they suck. Jackson Kowar sucks. Can't sniff the field. Jackson Kowar cannot sniff the field. Chris Bubich, terrible. Can't sniff the field. Last year, everyone just praised and loved and talked up Carlos Hernandez's end of the season. He sucks. 10 ERA, cannot sniff the field. Now, Brady Singer seems to have turned it around since his last stint in the minor leagues. Hopefully that kind of picks up. Daniel Lynch looks good, comparatively last year especially. Brad Keller looks really good from the Rule 5 draft. I like what we're seeing from Jonathan Hazley, but again, is Hazley going to be a rotational guy for you in 4, 5, 6 years? I think he's more of a kind of bullpen arm. It's interesting to see kind of how this roster is constructed, but not as interesting as going to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is incredible. With spring in the air, it's time to it's a time for renewal and growth, and you need to do that personally and professionally. As your small business grows, LinkedIn Jobs are here to make it easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job and your purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile, and you can spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. It has simple tools like screening questions to make it easier to focus on candidates that are the right qualification, right skills, and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs the number one in delivering qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. Post your job for free. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnMLB. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnMLB to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. We are back on the Locked On Royals podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Royals your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Royals baseball. For your second listen again, Locked On MLB for the national perspective, Locked On Prospects for the prospect perspective, Locked On Twins for the opponent perspective, Locked On Chiefs for football, as well as any other football team you like. If you don't like the Chiefs and you like the Broncos or whoever, we got those podcasts as well. Go check them out. Plus, our good friends over at Locked On Mizzou. So the Royals have struggled to win series. And I think that until they learn to do that, they're going to be the worst team in baseball. Again, given that you can see the process, you can see how close some of these games are, it does give you some hope that it could turn around. Well, the blowouts get the most attention. There have also been games in which we got the good pitching we needed, but the offense didn't show up. And on the flip side, to be fair to the hitters, wow, we scored 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 runs, but the pitching staff was awful. Eventually, you got to find your balance. Eventually, you got to find your happy medium. But you're running out of time because you cannot win the division in April, as we saw last year. You cannot win the division in May, as we saw last year. But you certainly can bury yourself. So we'll see what the Royals like to do. We'll see you tomorrow on Locked On Royals. Until then, be good and be good to one another.